Perfect, thank you. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Deshaun, and I'll be your host for this evening. Firstly, I'd like to thank everyone for joining and taking the time to join our webinar today, or this evening, should I say. So, for those of you who aren't familiar with who OMG are, so we are one of the leading and biggest UK media group agencies, where we have 4 agencies that sit within the central agency, and we also have 3 agencies that sit within, sorry, excuse me, lost my words for a minute there. But we also have 3 specialist content and partnership agencies with over 1,800 employees working across some of our market leading clients such as Channel 4, McDonald's, John Lewis, British Airways, Peloton, just to name a few that you may be familiar with. And the purpose of the webinar today is we're going to be talking about how, about the theme of Black History Month, and about OMG will be reclaiming the narratives. We're going to be celebrating Black people. We're going to be talking about our stories and our successes. And I'm pleased to say that I'm joined on the panel today by Louise. If you'd like to give a brief intro of yourself.
Hi, thank you, Deshaun. My name is Louise. I am Head of Insight at PhD UK. My team, the work that my team does, is all about helping our clients understand consumers better. So the vast majority of the projects that we work on are seeing whether the advertising campaigns and all of the marketing communications activity that we plan for them has been effective or not. So one of our clients is Sainsbury's, for example, and we are currently in the process of setting up some campaign evaluation work for their Christmas activity, which is coming up. So we do a lot of work in that space, but we can help clients with any kind of research problem. So it could be creative testing, it could be just more general understanding of how different people in the UK think and feel, anything really. So that's what my team does. I head that up, and yeah, really pleased to join you all this evening.
Thank you very much. And to my right, we have Adrian. Adrian, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello. So my name's Adrian. I'm a director in the marketing science team. So I'm part of the OMG EMEA team. So we work with clients across Europe, Western Europe more specifically. So within marketing science, in a nutshell, what we do is around measurement and optimization. So if we have a client that has spent some money on marketing, they want to know how effective that marketing has been. So we help to look at whether it's budget allocation. Once we do that measurement to say, this is how, if this is your budget, you've got 10 million, this is how you should be spending it. So that could be across channels, or for some of the bigger brands, it could be across like, so one of the brands we work with is Bacardi. So you could look at Bacardi rum, Bacardi flavors and things like that. So they will know how much should we be spending in each of these. And then we could look at budget setting as well. So we have a target, how much should we spend to reach our target? But then across that, we also do a lot of consultancy. So some of the questions they come with are a bit more bespoke. It could be around pricing and things like that. So we build models to help answer our clients' questions to the best of our abilities.
Perfect, perfect. And Jacob, if you'd like to give a brief introduction of yourself, please.
Brilliant. Yeah, thanks a lot. Great to be here. Thanks for having me. And yeah, so my name's Jacob. I work as Operations Director, but I also co-lead the Diversity, Equity and Inclusion for PhD EMEA. So it's the kind of sister agency to where Louise works. And yeah, I come from a background of, I started in the industry doing like actual digital buying. So search, social and programmatic, like in the platforms, actually placing ads and then looking at the performance and optimizing them to try and help our clients meet their goals. What I do now, what I've been doing for the last like 4 or 5 years, is more kind of operational. So I work on onboarding whenever we win a new client. So it's quite exciting. I get to work on all the new clients that we win. So actually in the past 4 years, I've worked on Diageo, I've worked on Chanel, I've worked on Sanofi, which is like or Appella, which is like a healthcare brand, pharmaceutical, and I've worked on Uber, to name a few. So yeah, what I do now is get the systems and the processes and everything set up so that when we win a new client or retain an existing one, everything works well and the team have a good structure to kind of work together. Yeah, and in the DE&I side, it's all about trying to create space so that everybody can, do their best work and feel safe in the working environment. Thanks.
Oh, amazing. Well, thank you for the introduction for the panel. And then just saving myself for last, just because you know the best go first. I'm a junior analyst and I also work in marketing sciences. So it's the same as what Adrian does, but just in the UK market alone. So that's just a little bit about us as a panel. So just to give you a little bit of an introduction to myself, what I was doing prior to this. So I joined OMG in June of this year as a junior analyst, but prior to that, I was actually in the recruitment team here at Omnicom Media Group, where I worked with Lou.
Yeah, Dejou helped me actually source a couple of members of my team. Did a brilliant job.
Wow, thank you. You are very kind. You did give me all the tools I needed to go and find about people, so I suppose collaborative effort, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So I was in the recruitment team. I worked in there for just over 2 years. And then prior to that, I worked in customer services and customer services training for a number of years before making a career switch into the world of media. And Jacob, I understand that you had a similar pivot into media at a separate time in your career. If you'd like to kind of like let everyone know what first piqued your interest in media and how you ended up pivoting within media.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thanks for the question. So for me, I kind of studied business at uni actually. So but I chose business because I didn't really know what I wanted to do, right? And business is very broad, right? You can apply it to any different kind of area of life. And then when I came out of uni, I did some work. I managed to find a job through a friend actually, and my first year of working was actually, I got in the company because I had a driving license. So I drove the van for this company and delivering their the model, they made architectural models, right? So I had to drive very carefully, obviously, but I delivered their models. And then in my downtime, when I was in the office, I started doing some marketing and advertising and new business generation for them. Then, yeah, I was made redundant when the credit crunch hit back in 2008, 7, 8 kind of time. And then I did some part-time jobs. So I was delivering pizzas for a while, trying to pick myself back up, And then basically I was at my friend's birthday party and I met someone who was working for Mediacom at the time, actually. And so it was really good fortune. Yeah, because she told me a bit about what she did. I was interested and she offered to pass on my CV. So that's literally what I did. And it came to someone like you, Dejou, working over at Mediacom that managed to get me a few interviews. And yeah, all these years later, here I am.
Must be loving it. Must be loving it.
Yeah, definitely.
Similarly to myself, so when I entered into media, so like you, I also studied business at uni, business and accounting. I thought that was clever because I was like, oh, hey, that was decent at maths in school, so I could be an accountant. And then I started studying accounting. I was like, I absolutely hate this. I could not be doing this for a living. But the business side of it, I thought, well, actually, I really like that, understanding how businesses operate, understanding kind of how businesses look at things and kind of the way that they make their decisions based on the information that they have. And for me, that was something that I found was a transferable skill that I was able to bring into media. Which one thing that I would say our friends in the recruitment team would be quite hot to say that transferable skills are something that is really, really important. So how would you say you were able to kind of bring some of those skills into media, and how has it helped you to kind of elevate your career as you move from more of a kind of a planning role into now more of an operational role?
Yeah, I think there are a few themes that run through it for me. One of them is having an idea about something that I want to try and that I'm interested in, and then kind of having the I guess curiosity to try and understand how things work, and then a bit of the kind of you've got nothing to lose type attitude in terms of asking, hey, can I shadow you doing this thing, or can I get involved in that project? Just the curiosity kind of pushing me. I think that's something that has helped me ask for these changes and push for changes in my career. I think in terms of transferable skills, definitely organization, right? So when I was in that first job that I mentioned, so I was driving the van and I had to, timekeeping was important, as well as just organization, like knowing where I'm going, what exactly I need to do, and keeping focus, but then getting back into the office and being quite strict with my time, knowing I've got, don't know, maybe 1, maybe 2 hours before I need to go out in the van again. So actually, what can I get done in that time? Like setting myself, like thinking about a bigger task and then breaking it up into chunks so that I can make slow progress in it over time. So yeah, I definitely say I'd summarize that to, organization and just like curiosity, right? Trying to find out more and like being bold to kind of ask to try stuff.
No, that's really amazing. And on the theme of curiosity, that kind of branches over into what you do. So in terms of your experience in media and research and insight, could you just give us a bit of background, kind of like how you got into it and kind of like the things that you most enjoy about that side of your role?
Yeah, at uni, I studied economics and economic and social history. Bit of a mouthful. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was looking at a range of different graduate schemes, and a company came to present at my uni. I went to Liverpool Uni, and it was a company called TSMS. And at the time, they were a sales house for ITV, and they had a rotational scheme. So what I really liked about that was you got to spend time in lots of different departments, and then there was at the end of the scheme you had a decision as to where you were kind of best suited. So I loved the idea of that variety and not having to make a decision right there and then, and also working for a media company for ITV sounded really exciting. And I don't think I'd made it past like 3 departments before that company was taken over by Granada. In that time, I had formed really good friendships with the research team, and I was just fascinated by what they did. I was really interested in what they did. So when that takeover happened, I got asked the question, "Is there a particular department you would like to work?" And I said, "Research seems really it seems really interesting to me." And luckily, the Granada sales team had on the research side had a vacancy, and I applied and I got that role. And I've worked in media research ever since. So I would say I fell into it, but I love it, and that's why I've worked. I mean, I don't want to give you too much of an indication of how old I am, but it's definitely over 20 years. Over 20 years working in media research, and to the theme of curiosity, you've got to have an interest in people, what makes them tick. Trying to find the answers, why are people responding in that way? Be it, it might be more generally how they're interacting with their families, because how is that relevant and useful to a brand like McCain, who have, who sell chips, and chips play a key part in, family meal times, to all the way to understanding, as I said before, about how, a TV ad might have influenced somebody's perceptions of a brand. So definitely, wanting to know the answer to questions, having a curiosity about what makes people tick, I think is really important for media research. And that's why, that's what appeals to me about the role that I'm in.
Amazing. And with you, Adrian, because in marketing science, so there are some similarities in the sense of, so where Lou was mentioning, understanding kind of like what makes people tick. In marketing sciences, we're trying to make what drives the KPI and kind of like what variables are best fit for the model. So could you kind of talk us through kind of like how you then first piqued an interest in marketing sciences, how you came across it, and how you've been finding it since?
Yeah, so similar to, I guess, just what I say, I went to uni as well, studied economics, did well. Once it finished, I thought economics equals banker sort of thing. So I was looking at all of those roles, going for grad schemes and things like that. But then I had a friend in the industry, so I came across a job role for MediaCom. So I spoke to my friend and said, "Look, I've got this role, or I've got this job opportunity at MediaCom. What do you think?" So he kind of told me a bit more about the role, because it was specifically marketing science. I really liked it. I did well in sort of the econometrics model at uni. So then I started at MediaCom. That went really, really well. Then I moved to a consultancy, so a smaller consultancy that specialized specifically in econometrics and marketing science. So I was there for about 4 or 5 years before the business sold. So again, that did really well. And then again, just being in those sort of roles and meeting different people, like I said, with marketing science, because we get to present to a lot of people, we start to build connections with people in the industry and other people just within that niche. So I actually had a friend that was here as well in OMG EMEA, and then I was kind of, once that business had sold, I was kind of ready to leave. And then I was speaking to my friend, and I'm like, well, there's potential opportunity here. Have a chat with the team, and go for the interview, and then really liked it. And then since I've been here, I just really loved it. I think there's a good culture and atmosphere here, especially within, not just within OMG and me specifically for me, but within the group as a whole, as OMG. So yeah, I think since I've just been here, I've just really tried to get involved in a lot of things, and yeah, I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, I think that's a really key point you mentioned, Adrian, about like the variety. And I think particularly working in a media agency, there is, because we get to work across so many different clients, you know, there is so much variety in terms of the sectors, types of audiences that you get to work across. And I've worked in previous jobs, I've worked on the media owner side. But media owners will tend, depending on who they are, can specialise. So, for example, I used to work for, they were called IPC Media at the time, but they're now Future. But they had a lot of women's magazines like Marie Claire and so on. So all of the research I did was on women, and I really loved that role and enjoyed it. But you know, in a media agency, I could be doing, you know, studies on gamers, male gamers. I could be doing mums. It could be like all adults in the UK. It could, so it's just so varied, and that's what I really enjoy about. And I think maybe for the same for you as well, for you both, and to you, Jacob, it's just that, you know, all the different types of clients and projects you can get involved in.
Yeah, definitely. Like even the clients I reeled off, you know, that I've worked on in the last few years, so varied, right? Like we've got consumer healthcare, we've got like high fashion with Chanel, Diageo that make all sorts of different drinks, like alcohol, and then yeah, Uber, right? Who obviously help us get around. They're in the business of movement, right? Moving people, moving food. So yeah, it's really exciting, and the exposure I think for me to all different types of people as well in terms of like backgrounds and mindsets. And you know, over my time in the industry, I've seen it becoming more diverse, and part of my job is making it a more welcoming place as well to work.
Oh, amazing. So I think that there are a lot of similarities in terms of experiences, lived experiences, in terms of the world of media, and a lot of positives. This is actually quite nice to see about media. And personally, one thing that I really enjoy about the media industry is that, of course, it's field specific, but generally speaking, the media industry, it allows for creativity in terms of like your approach and your ways of going about things. It's not very rigid. There's only a one way that you can do things. It's about kind of like bringing forward new ideas, showing the right attitude and want to say, well, actually, this worked well. That's cool. How can we make it even better? And then being able to then be empowered to then try and take things further, or just try and come up with new ways. And that's something that I've certainly found is really enjoyable about working in the media industry, and particularly here at OMG. And I think back to your point where you mentioned about cultures, Adrian, I think that, you know, the workplace culture, it is a really big thing, because let's be honest, in an ideal world, we'd all be millionaires, we'd never have to work, and we'd be probably sitting on the beach somewhere enjoying some nice weather rather than looking at the grayscale outside, right? Yeah. Unfortunately, we do have to come to work. So for me personally, I think it's really important to be working in a place where I enjoy not only the people who I work with directly, but I enjoy the people who are around me, and we all kind of like contribute towards the same goal, right? Yeah. And so for me, I think culture is a big thing in where I work, and making sure that if I'm going to be working until, well, the government seems to say 67, I beg to differ, but if I'm going to be working for a long time, I want to be working not just in a job that I'm really happy, but also in an industry and a company that will allow me to not just be satisfied with resting on my laurels and kind of like staying here and plateauing. That's going to constantly challenge me to saying, right, so we did good today. Now, how do we be better tomorrow? So that's something that culturally I found works really well here at OMG, and something that I enjoy. Yeah. On the flip side of that, what that also means is that there are some challenges that we do have to overcome. Could you name maybe a challenge or two that you've had to overcome that you would say, well, actually, in hindsight, it really helped to shape your career and kind of like bring you on the trajectory that you're on now?
I think specifically in terms of media industry challenge.
It could be media industry, it could be personal related, it could be any challenge that you've had to overcome that's helped you to take that next step and say, well, actually, no, I can do this. I'm ready for a step forward. I'm ready for the challenge.
I think for me, the challenges I've had at work have always come from the internal. So sometimes just thinking, I don't know if this is the right next step for me, and should I be going for this? Should I be doing that? So one of the things that's really helped me, and I think that is really reminiscent in the whole OMG, is having like good mentors and people that you can speak to. So like I said, one of my colleagues that works here, she's now on maternity. So I met her at the consultancy, and she was like she was a head of marketing science there. So she was kind of my mentor just naturally. I spoke to her and then I asked, can you be my mentor? Can you help guide me? And things like that. So when I've had challenges, having people that you can speak to, and it goes back to your point about you really want to work with people that you like, people that you can speak to, people that also will challenge you as well, but it will praise you when you're doing well. So I think that's what's really helped me overcome any challenges that I've had at work. So I've got quite a big, I think, support network within work and outside of work. That again, when I have these sort of challenges, I'm able to speak to people that can pick me up and keep me going.
Ultimately, it is important because the way I like to look at it is that, we're going to have our good days, we're going to have our bad days, but today we've made it through 100% of our bad days. And having that support system around you to help you get through those bad days, that's like, okay, today we brush it off and we go again. So, no, absolutely, I think that having that support system, both personally and professionally, is really, really helpful. And Jacob, and yourself?
Yeah, I'd say, one of the biggest challenges for me early on was before I came to Omnicom, I worked for a different group, and it's not down to that group, but there was a senior individual that led the team, who just, we had a chat once, and he was quite, he showed that he doubted me and my place. He's like, I'm not sure if this is the right type of job for you or the right type of company, and so one of the but earlier, because that was early on in my career, and I was a little bit more fragile, I'd say, mentally. So one of my early challenges was that feeling, that internalizing that feeling of questioning, is this right for me? Is this something that I want to do? But actually, I've overcome that by not just with the networks that you're talking about, right? Like working with people, getting to know them, getting to know our work, but also in really challenging and pushing what we can do within the bounds of our job, right? Trying to improve myself and also improve the way that we work together.
Yeah, absolutely. I think having that burning desire to not only to push yourself, but also having someone that can also push you, because there are some times where you're having a rough day, or maybe you're going for a rough spell, when you do kind of need someone to just kind of help you through that and just say, listen, I know, but don't worry, we're going to make it through. You just have to keep going, and you just have to keep persevering. So I agree, having someone to constantly be that, for want of a better phrase, that comforting ear, because sometimes it's nice to have a bit of a pick me up when you are feeling a bit down and you are going through a bit of a rough patch. So again, it's about that balance, right? Because it's all good and well when we're doing well, when we're getting lots of praise, and we're high flying, and then you feel like, that's it, I'm on top of the world. But to balance that out, on the harder days, it is also important to have someone that can really help you to say, okay, so now we've had this rough spell. How can we navigate out of it, or what can we do slightly differently, or what approaches can we do? So I would absolutely have to agree with you there.
And just quickly on Jacob's point about adversity as well, I feel like you can see kind of how, like I said, at that stage he was a bit fragile and it built him. So sometimes you're gonna go through some sort of adversity at some point. So I think it's always good to have those sort of feelings that nothing happens to you, it happens for you. And then you can see that he's gone on and then moved and been able to break boundaries and keep going and things like that. So I think it's just something to understand that in whatever industry you choose and in whatever role you're doing, you're always going to have adversity, but it's how you respond to that.
Yeah, from my perspective, I think maybe drawing on themes from both what you've all said, when I worked on the media owner side, and in the past I've worked for Mirror Group newspapers, so they had Daily Mirror, and as I said, I used to work for a sales house for ITV. Those more traditional media companies were very hierarchical, and I think we're very structured, and I felt that it was very hard to bring those new ideas that you were talking about, and whereas I do think in the agency world, that's definitely really encouraged. They really understand that's where a lot of innovation can sit. But I do think there was a point, if we're talking about specific challenges, there was a point in my life when I needed abdominal surgery, and that meant for a number of months I was on medication. I had an operation that I had to prepare for, and then I was off work recovering from that procedure. And so at that time, I basically had to kind of put work on a bit of a back burner because I had my health to focus upon. And when I came through the other side, I think I felt this almost like panic that I had basically that I'd lost a year almost, and that I had to make up for lost time. So I had a year that I said to myself, when it came to any work opportunity, I would say yes, which was simultaneously exciting but the most terrifying in my life. But it really, it was a really great time in showing me what I was capable of. And to your point, Adrian, about sometimes the blocks that you put on are yourself, and going back to that more traditional previous work experiences that I had, if somebody had asked me years ago, early on in my career, could you judge these awards, I would probably have deferred that to my manager and thought, I'm not experienced enough to do this. But in that year, I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm not even going to ask permission. I'm just going to do it. And I did. And then I realized nobody was annoyed with me. Nobody was going to stop me. And actually, it built my experience in doing that particular thing, and gave me exposure in that area. So I definitely do think, being brave and doing things that put you out of your comfort zone can really help when you do experience those challenges and get you through.
Well, I certainly agree with that. And I think that ultimately it is about having that belief within yourself and knowing that you are able to overcome. But what was also quite nice to hear you say is that when you said, okay, well, actually, I'm just going to go do it. And then you was then supporting and whatnot, that from my recruiting experience, that's what I typically know, the hiring managers, that's something that they like to see, those sort of characteristics, that forward thinking, using your initiative, not always needing to be told what to do. However, you are a much more qualified hiring manager than me. So what sort of characteristics would you say that you kind of look for in a person who's looking to start in the media industry, would you say?
I will probably speak from a research point of view, but we've talked about that curiosity, that interest in people. I truly believe that you don't need to have studied a particular subject to go into my field. And definitely across my team, lots of us, if you look at our education, not all of us have been to uni for a start, and not all of us have studied. Sometimes I think people think psychology and sociology are the route in, but it doesn't matter. Some people have geography, and so and they're still great researchers. So it's just more about your interest in people and what makes people tick. Obviously, being comfortable with data and numbers, because we're probably not doing as analytical work as you guys on the research side, but we still need to be confident with an Excel spreadsheet. And so yeah, attention to detail is really super important. Our work needs to be correct. Our clients might be making business decisions on the back of them, that it might be used for PR purposes. So that's incredibly important too. And I think just like generally wanting to work in a really collaborative and I think we've already talked about the openness of our industry, in that nobody's really going to put any boundaries I think, compared to some other industries where they can be incredibly structured. And so if you're keen to try new things and be innovative, I think that's this type of business is great for that.
Yeah, I certainly agree. Oh, sorry, after you go.
Yeah, no, sorry, I definitely echo what you're saying, Louise, and because you absolutely don't need to have studied a degree to come in. Like, I think for me, what I'm looking for as a hiring manager depends on the level, right? If it's entry level, then it's very much about your attitude and how you can bring good examples to the like interview or application form to demonstrate like your values, but how you behave under pressure, and how you can be organized, how you can be a good communicator. And because I think, especially with remote working, like almost over communication is really important, right? Letting people know where they stand, like if they're waiting for something from you, when they're going to get it, and these types of things. And then yeah, for experienced roles, again, everything that I said there in terms of the organization, like the basics, but then some good experience of like how you work together in a team, and so knowledge of particular platforms or systems, right? But when I'm writing a job spec or interviewing someone, I'm always really questioning myself about what's a must-have and what's a nice-to-have, right? Because there are a lot of things that you can learn, right? If you had to, over the course of a week, you could learn to use a new system, right? And to get the basics done in what you need to do. But you can't teach someone to be personable and kind when they're under pressure, right? So yeah.
Yeah, and I certainly think that as you go up, it does start to become a little bit more about kind of like, okay, so now how can you show me, or how can you put your best foot forward and show me your skill sets and show me kind of like what you're really, really good at? Because to your point, things can always be taught. So using myself as an example, so, I didn't, I don't come from a world where I studied anything to do with data prior to this. Before OMG, as I said, I was in customer services, so it was completely different. Whereas in at OMG, something that we really pride ourselves on is being able to encourage people to say, well, actually, it's absolutely fine if you want to have a career switch, if you want to take your career in a different direction, or if you wanted to try something new, you'll be encouraged to do that. And so how it happened for me as an example, so I started to teach myself how to code in Python initially, although now we code it now, that's fine. Coding's coding. But yeah, so I taught myself the basic, what is a coding language, and kind of like why are coding languages used within data, and what sort of things can they do, and what the different coding languages do. And within that, what the business will also allow me to do is they'll allow me to spend some time with the different data teams across the group to really understand what it is that the role requires, because a job title often it doesn't paint the full picture, because there's sometimes where you might look at your job description and you see a CV, sorry, you look at a job description and you look at the job title and then you're like, oh, but the two of them don't really match up. And in sometimes in media, that can sometimes happen just because of, I suppose, like the degree of flexibility within media. However, what OMG as a company like to do is they like to say, right, so what do you know? Where would you like to go? And how do we help you get there? So for me, that's kind of like how I then pivoted into the world of marketing science, as opposed to kind of like your traditional route where you studied economics, which studied econometrics, which then helps you kind of like pivot into marketing science, which then kind of like ties into kind of like the general theme of kind of like owning the narrative over your career and being able to say, right, this is what I would like in my career. And then it's about, to your point, Luke, about being brave enough and being bold enough to put your foot forward and to say, right, this is what I would like to do. How can we go about achieving it? Because let's be honest, at times, we're not going to have the answers, right? So you're going to have to then lean on people and kind of like find out how you go about things, or how you can start processes, or kind of like what steps you should be taking. And I think that certainly from ownership of your career, because I'm a firm believer that you have to take responsibility for your career, because no one's going to do it for you. And being in an environment where it's not only is it something that is done, but actually it's encouraged to do. And it's something that I find actually that really, really encourages me to think, okay, it's fine, take ownership of your career, because this is something that you say you believe in. Now we show it, which I'm a believer of. Show me, don't tell me. So that's just, I suppose, like my personal experience of how I was able to kind of like, not I suppose change narratives, because I always think that could mean anything, right? It's like asking how long is a piece of string. It can mean anything. To me, what that means is, how do I take responsibility for achieving the goals that I set myself, and how do I go about becoming successful in my career going forwards? So turning over to you guys, how would you say, or was there a particular point at which you said, well, actually, now I feel like I'm in control over how my career develops? Or was there a way that you thought about, okay, so this is what I would like to do, and this is how I'm going to now action and go forward and start making initial steps?
I think for me, after being at MediaCom, I kind of learned the basics of the industry and what to do. And then when I was leaving MediaCom, I had quite a few offers. And then what I did is I spoke to a few people, spoke to even a recruiter that was in the industry, but he hadn't actually offered me any of these roles. And I said, what do you think about these 3 companies that I've been offered at? And one thing he said to me is, if you go to one was like another big agency, is that at the moment you're going to be a small fish in a big pond, which means you're going to get a lot of support and you're going to be able to learn the things you want to do, but at the same time you're probably not going to get to do as much as you like. And why I ended up going to the consultancy was more where he said to me, if you go to here, you're going to be a big fish in a small pond, so you're going to do the work, you're going to do the presenting, you're going to do the marketing, you're going to do the hiring, you're going to do everything, right? So it just depends how you want to develop your career at this stage. So when I went there, it was a lot of hard work, being at a small consultancy, but I learned a lot, met a lot of good people, great people to be fair. And then that was kind of the path where I started to say, okay, cool, I need to actually think about where's my next role? What does that look like? What does the culture look like? How can I grow it? And I think that's what pulled me to OMD specifically. And then when I got here, I feel like I've been able to just accelerate my career in the position I want to go. And one of the things Luigi mentioned is around like our roles being quite analytical as well. And it is, but one of the things I like about it, or especially that helped me, is I think there's a lot of people that do the analytics work and they don't want to do presenting and things like that. Whereas I'm more like, I understand analytics, but I like talking to people. I like doing the presenting and things like that. So even going back to sort of your hiring question, even something I look at when we're hiring, whether it's junior people or even sort of senior managers and managers, is kind of just how do you think, and how, when you have an answer or you have a position, how strong are you with that? How do you change it? Because I always remember my first interview at MediaCom and my first hiring manager, where he said to me, the reason I hired you was because I gave you a question with around what do you think the best type of advertising is? And I said it has to be anything to do with sort of display. And he asked me why. And I said, because I can make a display ad and I can change the language and I can do this, I can do that, I can put it everywhere. And then we had a bit of a debate around it. And I always remember he said to me, name me one display ad you remember. And I couldn't remember anything. Then he said, okay, name me a TV ad you remember. And the first thing that popped into my head was dogs and the Adrix advert. So I said that, and then that was his kind of reason. I was like, this is why I think TV is the best. But I kept kind of going back to my point, and that's why he hired me, because I like the way you think, but also you have points and you're happy to be challenged about it and have a conversation about it. So yeah, that's just one thing I always remember about being your authentic self and being able to, you know, if you've got an opinion, make sure you say it and things like that, because I don't think it was the right answer, clearly, but I got hired. So, yeah.
Well, that's fair. That makes sense. And I think that there is something to be said for having your beliefs and then standing with that. And the reason why I say that is because, to your point that you just mentioned about bringing your authentic self to work, is the case of, I'm a believer of, whether you like me, you dislike me, you're somewhere in between. I'd like you to experience what I'm like, you know, and then you're able to say, okay, fair enough, here's what he is, you know, I'll be very honest, I'll listen to your opinions, we can have a conversation about things, because ultimately, no one person has all the right answers. And, you know, with the way I look at it, knowledge, you give them receipt, right? So I like to think of it as the way how I bring myself to work is, you know, I'll have a conversation with you, I'll understand your perspectives, I can learn from you, you can learn from me, because ultimately we're all part of the clock and we all need to play our part to keep the clock ticking, is the way I like to look at things. I see there's a hand.
Sorry, if I could just, yes, hi, Dejor. Great session so far. It's just we have so many questions. People just want to pick your brains from everything that we've heard. I just wanted to, sorry, you can just continue. I just wanted to let you know we have a lot of questions. So if you could just let us know when we can just start taking them, I've been collating them, I can share them with you.
I'm popping some answers in the chat as well as we're talking.
Oh,
amazing.
Perfect, thank you. Just conscious of time, then should we then open up to the panel, so to the audience, and go through any questions that the audience would like to have answered?
Yes, please. Yes, please. All right. So the first question we've gotten is, what advice would you give someone wanting to change careers into this industry at an entry level?
So I think at an entry level role, similar to what Jacob says, typically at entry level roles, it is a lot about kind of like your attitude. Are you showing the right core characteristics? And what I mean by that is, so are you, are you showing up? Are you looking professional? Are you looking to learn? Are you kind of like eager to ask questions? Because I think particularly being brave to ask questions is something that is really, really important in any entry level role. And speaking as someone who's recently moved into one, is kind of like going through this myself. It's okay to not know the answers. It's okay to feel like, oh, but I should know this, but you don't. And that's absolutely fine, because the expectation on you isn't to know everything and to be the one that's going to go and deliver everything and all the pressure is on you. It is absolutely an environment where you are supposed to be learning as much as you can, soaking up all the information, and then saying, okay, now how do I challenge myself in taking the learnings and then being able to apply that? So I think is ultimately, it doesn't matter about experience because it's an entry level role. I think ultimately it comes down to the right attitude and the right characteristics, and then that can take you a really, really long way. Anyone else like to?
Yeah, I think going back to a point that Jacob made before about, those kind of those transferable skills, and even if we've hired somebody who's a director level, who hasn't worked at a media agency or a media company before necessarily, but has done that job in a different type of industry. And so we brought her in. She can bring that skill set to the team, but also bring this completely different point of view. So I think looking for those transferable skills, what is essential? So this is the point that goes back to what Jacob was saying. What is essential for the role, and what are nice to haves? Because if you've got those essentials, then then I think there's a valid conversation to be had about putting yourself forward for that role.
All right, thank you. So the next question would be, so this person says, great insight so far. I was going to ask, where could someone with a creative digital marketing background potentially slot into OMG, OMD? I guess people are already interested in working with you guys.
So I'll definitely say, so we have got creative agencies that do sit within the group. And I'll absolutely say, so definitely take a look on our careers page, because we always have roles available. Also take a look on Javelin as well, because Javelin, they also show you our vacancies as well. Also take a look on LinkedIn. Obviously just like do as much research as you can, so that way you kind of like have an idea of kind of like what type of work, or just not specifics, but they have a general idea of kind of like the type of work that the creative agencies would do. So I'll say just look into the companies a lot more, and then try and align that with what you're looking for versus the role that offers that the most is what I'd say.
Fantastic. You guys, so I've just dropped the link in the chat. If you would love to work with OMG, we have a sheet. You can sign up. We'll send your data across, and you get the opportunity to be interviewed by OMG. Next question is, so this person says the panel is making good points. I appreciate Jacob's authenticity in revealing his early adversities with other leaders in the business. My question to the panel is, how do you advocate for yourself when you are continuously passed over for opportunities by senior leaders?
I'm happy to take that one. So thanks so much. I would say thanks, Chandra. Yeah, I'd say that if you're being passed over, it's really demotivating, right? If you're doing a good job and someone's saying, these are the things you need to do, the behaviors you need to display to get a promotion, but then you're not getting it, then you should absolutely raise that directly with the people involved, like with your manager or your manager's manager. But if something like that's happening over and over, then I think it's not worth staying in that situation for too long. And if you're raising it and nothing's happening, then it might be a good time to try and move to a different team within the organization, or possibly consider moving to a different organization, right? If you're working under a manager that's not advocating for you or not seeing your potential, then it's going to limit you, right? And really, you need to have you should start with yourself though, right? In terms of believing in yourself. But yeah, absolutely. If you're kind of being overlooked and you've raised it and nothing's happening, then that's what I'd say.
Just to build on that, I agree. I worked at a group. I mean, I loved my previous role, but there was definitely, and I made it very clear that I wanted to progress. So I wouldn't say that this was constantly being passed over, but I think that there was no attempt to find an alternative place for me, elsewhere in the group, because they wanted me in that job, because they were like, Lou's doing a great job here. We don't want to lose her. So I had to step out. I had to leave because I think they were comfortable with me being in that one position, and I had ambitions beyond that. So definitely seek out organisations. Look for where you've got signs that they are investing in talent, and if you think it is related, because obviously we've got to be honest, this is a webinar for Black young professionals, and we're aware that race may play a part in that, and we've got to be honest with that. And I would say that one of the things that really stood out to me about PhD was there was a Black female on the board. I've never worked in any other organisation where there is a Black woman on the board ever in my entire career. And so when I applied for that job, I was really excited. I was like, oh my God, this is an organisation where I can grow. And that has happened. I am now on PhD's board. I was promoted to it earlier this year. And so I think you will see the sign. Thank you. You will see the signs of a company who are willing to invest in good talent no matter where they're from. And unfortunately, that organisation sounds like it may not be. Yeah, definitely apply to that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. And congratulations, Louis. Congratulations on that. The next question we have is, what are your best tips about navigating a currently competitive job market? How can people stand out when they have a lot to offer and are open to continued growth?
Can you repeat the question again, please?
Definitely. What are your, so it's 2 in 1. What are your best tips about navigating a currently competitive job market? And how can people stand out when they have a lot to offer and are open to continued growth?
Okay, cool. I think the best tip I could say to start with, if you're already in an industry as well, is reach out to your network. See, it's really a competitive market. Why not try and make it easier for yourself? Reach out to your network. If you have friends or other colleagues that are working in roles or companies that you would like to be at, speak to them, see what's there. That's always a route. In terms of standing out, I think what is important is that when you go to an interview, you make sure that you're able to give your opinion and have sort of proof of what you've been doing. I think it's always better that you make a point and have some evidence, have something to back it, have scenarios and things like that in terms of actual interview tips. But also, if you have LinkedIn and things like that, it's always good to be active on those sort of places, because there's a lot of opportunities that do just get thrown around on LinkedIn as well. So if you're active on places like that, then you'll be surprised what may just come into your inbox or speak to someone. And again, things like that. If you're in a specific industry or you have a speciality, there's probably like blogs and things like that and questions on LinkedIn that if you just write small comments and things like that, it's like building your own personal brand. So personal branding is also something that can definitely help you stand out in the role.
Yeah, and I would just, I mean, I'm somebody who's involved in lots of extracurricular industry things. So I judge awards, I've hosted events, and those things have been things that I've used to make myself stand out. But I think there's lots you can definitely do within your own day-to-day as well. Do you work in a particular field where you could apply that to something completely different? And I'll just give an example, because I know that's always helpful. But yeah, my team work in research. Can we conduct research with the senior leadership team, which gives us visibility and helps raise their profile, instead of the senior leaders having to hire somebody externally to do that research, for example. So 1, you save money, which everyone loves, and then 2, you're raising your own profile. So that's an example of where you're not doing anything different out of your day to day, but you're doing something a little bit extra to help you stand out from, you know, all the other people who also want to stand out in front of those senior leaders, for example.
And I was gonna say,
Fantastic. Thank you, guys.
just quickly go back to Lou's point. Doing those extracurricular stuff is so good because it makes you stand out even within an agency. If you're kind of chasing promotions or things like that, those small little things is what someone might just know your name. And then now when it comes to pay promotions, they're like, oh, I know Lou because she did ABC, and then it just helps. So being able to put your hand up and do these things, it's not always easy. It is a challenge, but it takes you out of your comfort zone. And again, those are all things and skills that you're building that even if it's not within that company, again, it's something you can then add to your CV.
I certainly agree. And then just to add on to that last point, I also think that it's also important that you recognize the values that you have within your job field, and then being able to then articulate that when you are interviewing to get people to then see that value back in you. Because anyone can do a job, but to be the right person for the job, you have to be able to show your boss or your future employer exactly why it is, if you, for whatever reason, were no longer in the post, why it would be a big void to fill. So I think just certainly getting people to recognize the value that you bring to the team. So whether that's by the way, I suppose that you're very organized, or kind of like you help things to kind of like be ticking along through like very good communication, or your attention to detail, or just, you know, the very, very small things that make you stand out, because we are all unique and we're not all the same. So being able to identify things within yourself that makes you who you are is something that you can then always go and use to your advantage, is something that I recommend.
Amazing. Thank you, guys. The attendees tonight, we're basically having a 2-in-1. So we have you guys answering here. We have Jacob in the chat doing an amazing job, just really going in and just answering questions. Thank you, guys. It's really teamwork. I think everyone can tell that there is a great synergy at OMG just based off of this. So we can only take 2 more questions, and also saying only is not even doing it justice. Jacob has taken so much of the questions off of our plate. So we'll just take 2 more. I think this is a very lovely question. The person says, as a recent graduate, I really appreciate all the stories of how the panel entered the media industry after their degrees. What are the panel's favorite aspects of the media industry and the work they do?
I've already said it, so I'll be really quick, but for me, it is that variety. Like no 1 week, month or year is the same. My first year was all about, you know, like how could we create innovative ways about driving new revenues? And then it was developing different types of campaign evaluation products. And then like now it's all about thought leadership and how we use that to drive our thinking, but also to attract our clients. So I just love the variety in terms of our clients and all the types of projects we get to work on. Yeah.
I guess quickly for me, it kind of links back to the variety and just meeting different people. Like I like speaking to people, hearing their story, and also I like problem solving. So a lot of my role does come down to recommendations, and sometimes I could have a recommendation for a client and it doesn't exactly work for them. So it's about having that conversation, be like, all right, if this doesn't work, explain to me why it doesn't work, and let's find where we find that middle point. So for me, it's just I like solving problems. I like speaking to people. So that's why it's one of the, it's a great industry to work in just for those 2 things.
Yeah, for me, I think it's getting to basically work as a different team in evolving teams, right? The shape of the teams literally change from meeting to meeting. So right now I'm working on this massive project, and I've got a team in Spain that I'm working really closely with, got a team in Germany that I'm working really closely with. I've got a few different teams in London that I'm working really closely with. And, you know, it's just, it's really cool getting to, and also just the PhD EMEA office is like very, there's people from all over the world as well, like probably like British people are in a minority, I reckon, in the company. So it's really cool hearing all the different accents and the different languages and stuff around the place, and just getting to learn from different cultures as well. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you. So the final question for the evening, and I just want to say thank you to all our attendees. This was a really interactive session. Thank you for the amazing questions. So the final question would be, and this person says, I've worked in the past for a similar agency like OMG. I would love to work for your company. Could you please tell me the OMG's initiatives to strengthen diversity within its teams?
There are quite a few to prepare. But I think one that would immediately jump to mind and one that we're all part of. So at OMG, we have 9 ERGs, employee resource groups. And we are all a member of OMG Multicultural. And what that means is that we all work together to become representatives as a representative group to help the company hear, how can I word it best? To help the company see things from another perspective because it's spoken from a different lens, if that's a good way of wording it. And what I mean by that is, as part of the OMG Multicultural Group, we work together across all the agencies and we celebrate everything in terms of everyone's culture. So just last week, we had an event for Black History Month. You know, we've got an event coming up for Diwali, and we have several events going on across the year where we're all making sure that everyone is able to help educate one another about kind of like what their culture is, because ultimately we live in a very multicultural city, and it's very, very important that we learn from one another and be able to have a basic understanding of our peers. So I think that that is certainly one that really, really helps to benefit the culture that we've got at the company. So I think OMG Multicultural, as I said, all 4 of us, we're all members of it, and certainly something that absolutely adds to the success that we've got here at OMG from a cultural perspective.
And just quickly, the onus is on you as well to help build that culture. So that's one of the reasons why I joined the Multicultural Society, because I wanted to take action and help and do these events and do things like that. So just like you mentioned, 2 events that we've got going on, even within our agency, we've already started to plan for Chinese New Year and things like that. So I think one thing is the agency will have a culture around it, but also it's the people that are there taking actions and doing things to build that as well. So as one is the culture, but also just remember the onus is on you to build that culture as well for yourself.
Yeah, it's happening at so many different levels. So yeah, Dejor and Adrian talked about how we, as you know, as OMG, all the different agencies are coming together, but within individual agencies, we're doing lots as well. And just to give an example, you know, the race riots over the summer, obviously that was an incredibly distressing time for a lot of people of colour. And so we held listening sessions so that people could share their feedback. We informed, we advised senior leaders, look, this might be a time where people of colour don't feel comfortable coming into the office because there's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of scary things going out there. And I know that senior leaders appreciated that feedback. So we definitely have an open environment where we can share that feedback, and they are hungry for that advice because they're not always thinking of those things. And I think having a culture that can encourage those discussions is really important. So that is definitely happening at all different levels.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you so much. It's 7:02. The time just flew right by. You know what they say about great conversations? The time just went right by. Thank you so much, you guys. Thank you so much, Jacob. Thank you, Adrian. Thank you, Louis. Thank you, Dejor. This was such an amazing session. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who joined in. Thank you all for joining us today. We appreciate your time and engagement throughout the webinar. We hope you found the insights valuable, and we hope you are inspired to take action. We hope you're inspired to reclaim your narrative in your life and in your workplace. Remember, your questions and contributions are what made these sessions truly special. If you have any further questions or thoughts, don't hesitate to reach out. Rosie already shared her LinkedIn in the chat, so you guys go there really quickly before we drop the live, and just follow her on LinkedIn. I believe you can also follow OMG on LinkedIn as well and Instagram. Sam, can you please share what the handles are if possible?
Of course. And thank you, Bummy, for hosting it. You've been great.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, you guys.
Thanks a lot.
All right,
Yes,
Thank you.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you all.